Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Today, we are going to get back into the quarterback room. We are going to be talking about a draft prospect, and that prospect, of course, is Jalen Milroe of Alabama. I'm going to give you my thoughts, some pros, some cons, of course, a full scouting report from my perspective, and then a player comp and whether or not the Rams should consider him. But if you're not a Rams fan and you're here just because, you'll be able to enjoy probably 98% of this video. So let's dive into it. Before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to follow me on all social media at JKBogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. In addition to that, just want to let you guys know two things. First off, I'll be streaming on Kick tonight. We are moving away from the gaming channel, so if you guys have been following me on that, just isn't working out on YouTube, we're going back to Kick. We'll be gaming on Kick, so be sure, kick.com/JKBogan. Follow, and I'll see you tonight. In addition to that, also want to point out, I have the Lounge channel. If you want to check out my interview with Cameron Curl or any of my other Rams interviews that you might be interested in or other interviews, check it out. Again, link is in the description below. Let's dive into Jalen Milroe. So we got a 2-year starter coming out of Alabama, waited for his turn behind Bryce Young. And, this is somebody that, the last 2 years, he's made his mark in college football. He's 6'2", 217 pounds. He's 22 years old. He'll be 23 in December. He finished college with a 64.3 completion percentage, 45 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, and a 56.8 passer rating. But to add to that, he had 1,577 rushing yards, 375 carries, and 33 rushing touchdowns in his college career. Milroe was tied for 6th in yards per attempt. He was 4th overall, according to PFF quarterbacks, 20th passing quarterback, 6th in rushing, according to PFF, and had 113.1 passer rating when in play action situations. Milroe ran for 819 yards this past season on 139 attempts for 20 touchdowns in 2024. He had 29 explosive runs in 2024 and had a breakaway run percentage of 38.3, including the longest run of the season, which was 72 yards. He was only responsible for 14.3% of the pressures that were put on him. And so I think what you're seeing in this guy and what you're getting out of this guy is an elite athlete that has some potential. And if he develops into a legit quarterback in this league, he is going to be a nightmare for teams. But let's get into the scouting report. So here are the pros. We'll start off with the pros here. He's an elite athlete, like I just mentioned, right? Reportedly ran the 4.3s. I don't know what he actually ran. When you get into the pro day, it gets a little, did he really run a 4.37? Did he run a 4.43? Either way, you're getting really, really fast speed, okay? Watching this guy on tape, that's really all I care about. I don't really care so much about the measurables as I do about what he looks like on game film. He's electric as a ball carrier, absolutely electric. He has a 0 to 60 acceleration, can eat up any angle that a linebacker, safety, what have you, is going to take. He's going to turn the corner and take it to the house if you let him. He's not a straight line sprinter, though. I want to make that clear. I think so often, we hear speed and we instantly think of straight line speed. And that's, of course, why the 40 time is incredibly overrated, because you're not going to necessarily run 40 yards every play. Actually, most plays you're not. It's why when edge defenders run a 4.4, it's like, who cares? Show me the 10-yard split, because that's about as far as they're going to be running on down and down. So that's the thing is, he's not just a straight line guy. He can make guys miss. He's elusive. He's agile. When the pocket collapses, he can keep his eyes upfield, and not give up on the play and not just turn into a runner and, sidestep and make some plays and break some tackles. So I like that about him. He's also got an elite arm. Okay. We're talking 60, 65 yards, flat-footed, deep down the field type elite arm. Now, arm strength is what's elite. When I hear elite arm, I do kind of feel like, in a sense, the way that's described is that can be like arm talent. Like, oh, this guy's just elite. He has an elite arm. He can make any throw. And that's true. But the accuracy we'll get into. So anyway, elite arm strength, 60, 65 yards off, a flat-footed base. Look, I think the thing that I really like about Milroe's passing, especially deep downfield, and it's not not totally consistent, but when he's on, his highs are very high. He can look like the best player on the field. But he marries the combination of touch and throwing power, and he really hits on those crisp downfield deep throws. And that's something that I think is kind of underrated. I think when you look at it, obviously you want to have a guy that can throw a touch, but if there's too much touch, you're going to have a quarterback that's forcing his receiver to turn all the way around and have to stop dead in his tracks, where he's going to be able to throw it on the run. He's going to be able to throw it, hit this guy in stride, and that's what I do like about him. And again, it's not super consistent. We'll get into that, but when he is on, like I said, you see it. You definitely see the potential there. Can make every throw on the field, all three levels of the field. Has plenty of zip to accomplish that. Far hash throws, throwing those outs. He can hit that. You have defensive backs that'll sit on that, but he still has enough zip to get by a lot of those guys that are trying to jump those routes. So that's excellent stuff. When you see the arm strength to be able to really rip a throw like that, that is something that is rare. That's something that is far from common, and is something that you feel good about if you're trying to find somebody to develop into a potential starter down the road. He does a nice job of finding soft spots in zones, which I do like. His mental processing could be better, and we'll get into that, but really, I think he does a nice job of that. He can be surgical at times, but again, that accuracy, we'll get into that. He's got a quick release. He's got solid mechanics, but the good thing is he's got a lot of room for improvement, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think, a lot of the things he has you can work with, and, this isn't a guy that should be starting day one, but I think based on where he goes, he has a chance to be really good if he goes to the right fit for him. He's going to look off safeties. He's going to manipulate defenses with either his head, his shoulder fakes, what have you. I think that's a little bit of kind of that nuanced passing, thing that you have to have as a quarterback that kind of gets, overlooked. And he does a nice job of that. He's got a clutch gene in him for sure. I think, this is a guy that's really stepped up in some big time moments on a 4th and long. I believe it was against Tennessee. I actually forgot the team, but he had a crazy 4th and long moment, and forced, their hand and actually ended up scoring a touchdown. So he's got a lot of big time plays late in games on his resume. It shows up on tape. And he's really durable. I mean, this is a guy that hasn't really had an injury history, and he started 2 seasons in the SEC, so for a big-time program. So say what you will, but Milroe stays, and the best ability is availability. Milroe is almost always available, so that's something to feel good about. Now, here are the cons, and there are quite a few. His ball placement is inconsistent, especially on deeper downfield throws. Like I was saying, receivers have to make routine adjustments. It eliminates their ability to win after the catch, create extra yards. Even will put the catch in jeopardy altogether, because if I have you wide open and then I underthrow you and now it's a contested catch opportunity, that also means it's an opportunity for you to not catch it. So contested catches are not 100% throws. Those are throws that become 50-50 balls, and you don't normally like those odds, especially when you already had a guy wide open and you kind of ruined it. So I'm not trying to say this is all he does, but he does have quite a few of those on tape. He's not the best decision maker, holds on to the ball way too long, so that is something. He's going to routinely scramble out of clean pockets. And look, this isn't something that is exclusive to him. I've watched a lot of quarterbacks. Every single year, there are quarterbacks that have the athleticism that he has, although this is kind of rare. But on the level or similar, they have the athleticism, but instead of using that to their advantage and using that as kind of a addition to what they add, instead they lean on it. And that's the thing, where you have a running quarterback or a dual threat that knows how to manipulate defenses with his legs. He can be way better than a guy that's just constantly taking off out of a clean pocket and no pressure and is giving up on guys that are wide open downfield. You find those plays and you watch those plays and you're like, wow, Milroe got 20 yards on that, but he could have had 40 if he saw the guy deep down the field on the post that was open. And that's something that I notice on film with Milroe, is that he'll routinely leave a clean pocket, and guys he'll just leave a lot of yards on the field where open receivers are just there, and he just takes off and runs. And again, in the heat of the moment, when you're watching it on TV in the broadcast view, you're like, oh yeah, Milroe, you had to assume nobody was open downfield, and he just took off and got 20. Love that. But then when you see the all 22 and you see the full tape, you're like, oh, dude, you had a guy wide open. Why did you do that? And, that ends up being an issue. So that's something there. He can hit the big 3-pointer, but, he's going to miss a lot of layups. And that's something that, I think instantly you start thinking about guys like an Anthony Richardson who, look, this guy could throw probably 90 yards, off his flat feet. But, end of the day, he can't hit the easy ones. And that's really plagued him in the NFL. It's not to say he'll never be able to, but currently he's struggling, and I just think that's something that you have to look at because that's the way the NFL is. You got to be able to hit those throws. I mean, whether it's a quick dig or you got to hit the crosser over the middle. I mean, Tom Brady wouldn't have been Tom Brady if he couldn't hit those crossers early on in his career in New England. So say what you will, but those are important throws. They matter. It's great that you can hit the deep ball here and there, but I need you to be able to hit inside the numbers. I need you to be able to hit over the middle. I need you to be able to put my receiver in stride and have him make catches and be able to run after said catch. So that's something that I look at as well. His pocket presence, in my opinion, needs to be rebuilt from scratch. I think he currently does not move well in the pocket. He's got a lot of, experience, facing pressure. He does a nice job of getting outside of it, but I want to see him step up more. I want to see him throw, staring down the barrel of the shotgun like, we just looked at Kyle McCord. That's somebody who's fearless in that sense. The thing with Milroe is that he just rather get out of the pocket and make a play, which I don't want to fault him for, but I would just like to see, me personally, would like to see him step up in the pocket and make a throw that, you layer it over a linebacker or what have you, and I just don't feel like he consistently does that. So that's a nitpick of mine. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a deal breaker or anything like that. He really struggles in the red area, though. His completion percentage drops below 50% when he's in the red zone. So unlike, what we were just talking about with McCord, who's really good and thrives in the red area, you have Milroe, who really just doesn't have those different speeds on his throws, and you see it. And when you have a guy that struggles in the short and intermediate game, well, when you start to get in the red area, the field starts to shrink. And now you have to hit on those, short and intermediate throws. And if you don't, well, that's going to be a problem. So he does like to try and get out and run, and that's like his comfort. I'd like to see him kind of challenge himself a little bit more and give himself a little bit of a chance. It just feels like he rushes his throws. He rushes his mechanics when he gets in the red area. He's had some great plays in the red area, don't get me wrong, but in a full scope, everything he's done, I just don't love what I've seen from him in the red zone. He needs to get a lot better in the mental aspect of his game. It's really that simple. But I think when you look at this player, he is definitely worth drafting if you are in a position where you already have your starter, you already have your backup. He doesn't have to see the field, and you can have him sit 2 years, maybe even 3 years behind somebody that is really nuanced as far as a passer, somebody that's a leader, somebody that can help you, when you get in the film room. And then in addition to that, you have a head coach that is willing to kind of nurture you and help you grow and really teach you the nuances of playing quarterback. And obviously, you can see why I think he does make sense for the Rams, but I will get further into that after the player, comparison here, which I'm going to say is Justin Fields, with a caveat here, with an elite arm, because Justin Fields had a good arm, not elite arm, but a good arm, but not as good of accuracy. So Fields, to me, is a good comparison because, one, he runs just like Fields runs, right? And Fields had a really good arm, but he didn't have the elite arm that Milroe had. Milroe has a freakish arm. Don't get it twisted. This isn't just a guy that's a running back. And that's why it sounds so ignorant when people say he should just move to running back and give up, playing quarterback. That's ridiculous. When you see some of the throws he can make, and there are not many quarterbacks in college that can make every single throw on all three levels of the field, well, you definitely want to at least try and work with him and try to get the most out of him and develop him. So that would be a mistake there. So I look at Milroe very similarly to Justin Fields, a guy who's an elite athlete, has a great arm, elite arm, and he could be an absolute killer as a ball carrier. But at the same time, Justin Fields, and this is where I don't say it's a complete comparison to Fields, because Fields was a better, in my opinion, better thrower of the football as far as from a accuracy standpoint. Down in and down out, I trusted Justin Fields more to hit on those short and intermediate throws, the layups, if you will, than I do Milroe. Milroe and Fields have about the same deep ball. Both were kind of inconsistent at points. But I think when you look at Fields, the mental processing has really kind of plagued his career. He's always had some really good numbers. And when you look at it, he really just kind of looks like Michael Vick did, early on in Atlanta. So I think there's been kind of an unfair depiction of who Justin Fields really is. And he kind of lost his opportunity to start. And I'm not necessarily saying that Caleb Williams was the better option to go with. But the point is, the mental processing, the woes have been there. And I think if Milroe is put in the same position where he starts too early like Fields did, he's going to suffer the same fate. Now we know Fields is probably going to be the starter for the Jets. They just signed him to be, but it took him a little bit to get to that point. He's been a little disgruntled, didn't really get a huge opportunity in Pittsburgh, and they pushed him out the door in Chicago. So Milroe is going to have to learn the nuances of playing quarterback, and once he gets comfortable with that and he has the mental game down, I think the sky's the limit for him. And that's why I think the Rams are a decent fit for him because, obviously there's going to be better quarterbacks out there. There's going to be guys that are more likely to hit and you have a better chance of hitting on. But think about the boom or bust potential of Milroe. If you put him in the Rams organization where he's got Jimmy Garoppolo in front of him, he's got Matthew Stafford in front of him, doesn't need to start for 2 years, maybe even 3 years, and has Sean McVay as his head football coach, you have to feel like Milroe would be in a good spot there because, he has the legs, but if he's willing to utilize the legs as an absolute weapon where he can actually work off schedule, off script, and throw off defenses and not just be a scrambling addict, this guy has a chance to be really good. And so I think he's worth the gamble. In the later portion of day 2, I'd feel better getting him in like round 4, early day 3. And I think there's a chance he could have fallen there, but that 40 time, somebody is going to draft him early on. I hear a lot of people say this guy is Taysom Hill, and I don't really understand that at all. I think this guy can absolutely be a starting quarterback in the NFL if he goes to the right spot. Now, if he goes to the wrong location, if he goes to a bad organization, if he goes to a place where he has to play right away, he is going to be a bust, and there is no doubt about it in my mind. He needs the right guys around him. I think the Rams are a great fit for him in that regard because they have no need to start him. They have no need to make him their backup. They have practically their whole roster figured out now, and they are ready to win a Super Bowl, but they also have to keep an eye on the window moving forward. Stafford isn't going to play forever, and if you have a way to somehow find a guy like Milroe who can pretty much end any chance of if there is pressure, now you have a guy that can just eliminate that pressure. He can win with his legs, give Sean McVay a dynamic he's never had before. I think the sky truly is the limit. And we don't know the type of quarterback Sean McVay is truly going to go after. We have ideas that, like, you look at somebody like a Kyle McCord who fits a lot of what he looks for in quarterbacks, has some Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, and Jimmy Garoppolo to him, but we don't know because he has not picked a quarterback aside from Stetson Bennett, who, by the way, was a mobile quarterback. So there is risk involved. And this is a quarterback that is susceptible to absolutely busting here. I think there's a decent risk, but the reward is massive. And I think the high-end upside is you're getting a Jalen Hurts if this works out, who was drafted when the Eagles already had Carson Wentz, and now he's their franchise quarterback of the future. So of the here and now, actually, just won a Super Bowl. So am I saying Milroe will be a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is that knowing that the Rams have a lot of their stuff figured out, they could actually do this and it would make some sense. Because thinking about the fact that he doesn't have to play right away and getting somebody like that in there that you don't have, somebody that, think about this for a second, Jahmyr Gibbs, who is one of the fastest players in this league, he is caught on GPS running faster than Jahmyr Gibbs when they were teammates. understand having a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, but he could throw. And if he could learn the nuances and the structures of a Sean McVay offense and develop, he would be disgusting. So I'm not saying he is a can't miss prospect. He's actually the furthest thing from it. And if I were other teams, like if I was the Giants, wouldn't draft him. If I was the Jaguars, I might draft him. But you have to have a starter in place. And in my opinion, you have to have a backup in place. And I think the Rams are in a really interesting position where they could take whoever the hell they want. And regardless, whoever they take at quarterback, if they do take one, he has the benefit of not having to play right away or competing for that backup role. It's locked in. Garoppolo's a top 3 backup in the sport. So with that said, you could get kind of cute here. You draft a guy like Milroe. You don't have to commit to him long term. So if he doesn't show any ability to grow and he doesn't understand your offense, you are free to draft somebody in 2026 because this would not be a first round pick. But if he works out, you had the benefit of having Stafford and Garoppolo, and you got a chance to roll the dice, take a guy that might fit this new era of football, have a mobile quarterback for once, and actually have a chance to one-up every single person in the league. Because the one thing people say about the LA Rams that is kind of interesting is that while Stafford is incredible and can make any throw on the field, they do not have a mobile quarterback that can take off and get you chunk yardage. Could you imagine if Sean McVay added that to his arsenal post Matthew Stafford? Could you imagine if Jalen Milroe had the ability to scramble for 40 yards at any given opportunity, but also had Puka Nacua and had Sean McVay and had an offensive line and a running back and a really good defense? Now you start to see how you could become a team like Philly. You could become a team like the Ravens. You could become a team that quite honestly doesn't have to worry, because if the quarterback faces pressure, they can get out on the run and they can make teams pay. And the beautiful thing about that, now teams have to respect that. Now teams have to go out of their way to set up a player to spy that said player. So and that is the dynamic that it creates. And I'm not saying Jalen Milroe is the only one in this draft that you could do that with. I'm not saying he's 100% a guarantee. But what I am saying is he's definitely worth a look, and I would not be surprised if the Rams thought the same. That's what I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to check out the rest of the channel. Also, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, folks. Later. All right, guys. So once again, just want to let you guys know that you can check out my new side project, The Lounge. I interview athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, all the nine. So definitely check it out over on the Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen channel. Be sure to subscribe and enjoy. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.